How did this happen? How did it happen? Well, if you haven't heard by now, I crashed the Mavic 2 Pro. If you haven't heard or you have heard and you follow me on YouTube here or on Instagram or any platform that I post on regularly, then you probably knew that I was scheduled to take a trip to Alaska, a 10-day trek, not really starting, but the farthest point north we were going to go was Talkeetna, the farthest point south was Homer. So we had this trip planned out, and the idea was to enjoy ourselves, but also to gather as much drone footage, as many drone photos as we could of the beautiful state that is Alaska. And that went well for about 4 or 5 days. So I'll tell you the story. It's hard for me because if you own a drone and you fly it for fun or for work, you sort of become attached to them. It's kind of weird. I don't normally get attached to inanimate objects like at all. They're things to me, but with the drone, it moves and it can see in a way. I mean, it's helping you to see and you're the one controlling it, but that dynamic of having vision and also being able to move and having some smart features that give it some autonomy sort of creates this illusion that it's a living thing. And it's one of the few inanimate objects, like I said, that I've actually ever become attached to in my life. So it is sort of difficult for me to talk to you about this because I feel like I have lost somebody close to me in a way. But anyway, so we went for a really long hike. And at the end of this hike was this beautiful glacier. I mean, it was totally untouched, nothing around it for miles and miles and miles, with the exception of maybe a small cabin and some other things, some remnants from mining back in the day. But overall, this glacier was totally remote, totally untouched, and just absolutely breathtaking to look at. Just the size of it, where it was located, everything about it was amazing. So naturally, I wanted to put the drone up in the air to get some pictures and some video of it. And I went out, flew, got some awesome shots of it, got some cool photos too, and it was time to bring it back because the wind was really, really bad in this particular pass. And looking back on it, I probably shouldn't have flown the drone at all, but it was one of those things where it's like, I probably won't get back to Alaska anytime soon, and I wanted to make sure that I captured as much of it as I could, especially the more beautiful parts, and this fell into that category. So I thought, have it up for just 5 or 10 minutes, everything will be fine. And that was true until I said this phrase, one last shot. I said it out loud, and I should have known right there to just bring the drone back immediately, because anytime you say something like that, especially when you're flying drones, you have a very high risk of not getting your drone back, at least in one piece. So the final shot, which I'm going to start playing for you now, is a shot where I wanted to reveal the glacier. So I started in the middle, maybe upper portion of the glacier and started to pull backwards. Now, normally this isn't a problem because the Mavic 2 Pro has obstacle avoidance on it. Unfortunately, the day before, I was shooting in an area that had a lot of dangling foliage, a lot of tree branches, a lot of obstacles that the obstacle avoidance wouldn't allow me to fly through unless I turned it off. So in order to maintain a straight flight path for that flight, I turned the obstacle avoidance off. Had I just taken a second, taken the ego out of it, knowing that I am a good drone pilot, and instead of just relying on the fact that I am good, that I've got 5 years of experience, I know what I'm doing in the DJI ecosystem, I should have gone through my pre-flight ritual, which is to look at everything on my HUD, make sure everything looks normal, no warnings, no pop-ups, nothing like that. Make sure your obstacle avoidance on. If I just would have gone through my checklist before I started my flight like I normally do, things wouldn't have played out the way they did. So anyway, back to the clip. Started pulling back for this reveal shot. And you'll see here that even though it's super low res, I was able to pull this off the DJI Go app. It was going to be a really great shot in 4K. I was very, very excited about it. But I pushed the shot just a little bit too long. Instead of cutting it at 30 seconds, I thought, you know what, I want as much of this as I possibly can get. I'm going to push it out for another 10 or 15 seconds, maybe even 20 seconds. And that's what the nail in the coffin was for me, because without the obstacle avoidance on, I had visual line of sight, but my depth perception apparently wasn't what I needed it to be for this particular shot, with all the whites hitting up against each other with the snow and the ice. There were a lot of things that just sort of fell directly into place to cause this crash. Anyway, I backed it right up into the cliff, and if you blink, you'll miss it, because I was able to record maybe like a half a second, and I'll play that in slow motion here in a moment just so you can see that when I backed up, I hit a cliff behind the drone. It happened so fast that I thought that I pushed the battery too hard. It was too cold, there was too much wind, and the battery just gave up. I thought that the drone just turned off in midair. So either way, I knew the drone was down. It had crashed, but I didn't know what the cause was. But after reviewing the footage, there is maybe like a half a second portion of that footage where you can see the drone contact with the cliff behind it and tumble down before it finally loses connection and shuts the recording off. So it was a really difficult pill to swallow, because not only did I just crash a $1,600 drone, I was only on day 4 or 5 of my trip, and all I had left with me was my DJI FPV. I didn't even think or consider bringing the Mini 2, because why would I? At that point, I thought, there's no way I'm going to crash. When has that ever happened to me? Last time I crashed and had a really bad crash where the drone actually hit the ground was back when I flew my Phantom 3 for like one of the first 5 or 10 times I'd ever flown it. So I really had this high level of confidence that I probably should have toned down a little bit. Anyway, stuck, just had the DJI FPV, and I needed a solution because I did not want to miss out on the last 5 days without a drone. So I did something I'm not really proud of. I called it a rental, but really what I did is I went to Best Buy and I purchased a DJI Air 2S. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but first of all, I just want to say this isn't normally something I do, but it's a scenario where I didn't want the Air 2S. My Mavic 2 Pro is insured, and I also have the DJI Care Refresh. So I wanted to explore those options before I actually bought a replacement drone for the Mavic 2 Pro. So I went to Best Buy, I bought the Air 2S with the intention of returning it. That was the whole intention. So anyway, I won't get into great detail about that whole scenario. That's what I did. I'm not super proud of it, but I came out on the other end. I learned a little bit about the Air 2S, and I was able to capture the rest of the trip from a drone that is designed for photo and video. Anyway, the DJI Air 2S is a drone that, in a comparison video I did with the Mavic 2 Pro, I declared the loser. I wouldn't use that term, but I said that it hadn't quite succeeded the Mavic 2 Pro. There was just a few things missing from the Air 2S system that I thought it doesn't have the edge on the Mavic 2 Pro yet. It came damn close, the closest that any drone has come since the Autel Evo 2. But I still declared it not obsolete, but it didn't quite hit the same standard that the Mavic 2 Pro hits. After using the Air 2S in the field, unfamiliar territory, I can tell you that that drone is extremely high-end. For what you pay for that drone and what is packed into it, you can use it as a fully professional system. No doubt about it. I was a little skeptical before I had flown it. After flying it, I can tell you that I captured some brilliant imagery with it. The camera on it is super impressive. I still wish that it had an adjustable aperture, but you get what I'm saying. This drone surprised me at A, how well it handled, and B, how great the camera system is. If you are looking to get a prosumer or professional level drone, something you can use commercially for clients, and you are on a budget, or you want to pick an option that saves space, doesn't take as much room in your bag or your truck or whatever you use to transport it, the Air 2S is something you definitely want to consider. I am eating a big slice of humble pie, not just because I found out that maybe I'm not the big drone pilot I was cracked up to be, but also because I owe the Air 2S a huge apology for cutting it so short. It saved my trip in Alaska, and I fully endorse the DJI Air 2S as a prosumer, if not professional level aerial imaging system. It was fantastic. But yeah, if there's one thing I want to leave you with today, this video, it's that always check and go through all of your checklists. Always make sure that you're looking for every fine detail before you put that drone in the air, because you don't know if it's going to be that drone's last flight with you. Unless you have taken all of the precautions to mitigate the risk, not just to everyone around you and the environment around you, but also to the drone itself, you're not doing yourself any favors. You have to make sure that you're looking into every single thing that could go wrong before you put that drone in the air. Super, super important. I learned that lesson the hard way in Alaska. So like I said, Alaska didn't just steal my heart over the last 10 days. It stole my drone too. And speaking of Alaska though, I'm currently working on a highlight reel for my trip. It's going to document all of the things that we saw, or almost all of the things that we saw. We couldn't fly everywhere that we went, but most places we were good. So I'm working on that right now. The other thing that I'm going to be doing following that video, hopefully that video will be out next week. If not, I'll do some rearranging. But the other video that I'm going to be doing is how to get a permit in the state of Alaska for Chugach State Park. So Chugach State Park is this giant state park right below Anchorage and just above Seward. And it stretches forever. And if you have a drone and you want to take it to Alaska and film in Alaska, you want to make sure that you get that permit, because Alaska has just one state park that expressly bans the operation of drones from its boundaries, and that is Chugach. But if you go through the right channels, you can get a permit to go ahead and fly your drone in Chugach State Park. It's a little bit pricey, but if you've got the money that you've saved, or you're ready to invest the money into a drone shoot in Alaska, particularly Chugach State Park, you're definitely going to want to watch the video that I put out here in the next week or two, because I'm going to go through that entire process, how you do that, and how you play by the rules, by the book. That's what I had to do. I had no issues. I was only asked one time to present my permit, and there was absolutely zero issue with the document that I presented them. They just said, all right, have a great day, enjoy flying. That's it. That's all that happened, and I was not bothered about it again. So definitely want to show you how to do that, because the system is a little bit cumbersome and, like I said, a little bit expensive too. So you should know what you're getting yourself into before you actually get into it. Until next time, I'm Chris, the Drone Geek, and today we're going to wrap the video up with a tribute to the Mavic 2 Pro. I love you, buddy. I'm going to miss you.
Spend all your time waiting for that second chance, for a break that would make it okay. There's always some reason to feel not good enough, and it's hard at the end of the day. I need some distraction. Oh, beautiful release. Memories seep from my veins. Let me be empty, oh, weightless, and maybe I'll find some peace tonight in the arms of the angel. Fly from here, from this dark, cold hotel room, and the endlessness that you fear. You are pulled from the wreckage of your silent reverie. You're in the arms of the angel. May you find some comfort here.